are aware that the team is exploring all of their options at quarterback, including moving in a different direction from Tua. Remember, even in that last concussion, it took him 38 days to clear the protocol.
According to NFL insider Josina Anderson, the Miami Dolphins are looking for a new quarterback. And Tua Tagovailoa, after suffering multiple devastating concussions, he may be out of a job next year. But is the Miami Dolphins organization to blame for this? Were the Dolphins and head coach Mike McDaniel really upfront about Tua's injuries? And we know that Lamar Jackson is rumored to go to the Miami Dolphins. He could return home to Florida. And the Dolphins and owner Stephen Ross tried to make a splash prior to the 2022 season until they got popped for tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady. We know the Dolphins were previously in play for Deshaun Watson and even tried to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo last season, according to Jimmy Garoppolo. We're gonna dig into all these deep questions. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for more NFL content. Tua Tagovailoa did have one of the best seasons of his career last year in 2022. He actually had the highest passer rating for any Miami Dolphins QB since Hall of Famer Dan Marino. But after the first concussion that Tua had in week 3, he just was not the same. We know after he fell back and hit his head, he was stumbling around, walking for a little bit, and then fell. And the Miami Dolphins went out of their way to say this was a back injury and that this was not a concussion. And even in the press conferences after that game, head coach Mike McDaniel tried to downplay the injury and say that Tua himself even said he was fine.
Everyone was so worried about, trying to talk to him through the lens of, hey, is there something wrong with your head? And no, I'm fine. And he was dealing with his back. He knew that he was losing his balance a little bit when he was getting up, but it was a completely different source of issue from what everyone else was really looking at from that prism. So,
and going into week 4, many people believed that Tua should sit out for that game, but instead he would elect to play, and this would be a decision that would dramatically affect the rest of his career. And we know going into this past season, Tua had a lot to prove. He had injury issues coming out of the draft from Alabama and really never put together a solid season in Miami. And with the addition of players like Tyreek Hill, it was known that Tua would have all the weapons around him to succeed. So going into this game, week 4 against the Bengals, it's likely that Tua wanted to play, wanted to continue to prove himself, especially since he was having a good year. And it's honestly a shame that the Miami Dolphins let him go back out there. Now that we're looking at it in retrospect, they should have held him back for his own good. So Tua Tagovailoa would go on to have one of the most tragic concussions on national television primetime football. He was twitching on the ground, and quite honestly, it was difficult for audiences around the world to even watch. And everybody saw it coming, and everybody wondered, was Mike McDaniel, the head coach, lying when he said that Tua just had a back injury and Tua is fine? Unfortunately, the scapegoat would not be anybody from the coaching staff of the Miami Dolphins organization, but instead somebody from the medical staff. But it really does not take a genius to know in the first place in week 3 that Tua was obviously having a concussion. So the fact that they're firing a doctor and just putting the blame all on them is really sketchy, honestly. After the concussion in week 4, he would return to play in week 7. And then in week 16, we would see another concussion. Against the Green Bay Packers, the Miami Dolphins would lose that game, but the next day, Tua Tagovailoa would be in concussion protocol and then ruled out for week 17 and the rest of the season. And even though he had the highest fan votes of any quarterback for the Pro Bowl and he'd be named a first-team alternate, because of these injury issues, Tua would not attend the Pro Bowl. And Tua would lead the league in passer rating, even though he had these 3 concussions. Oh, I'm sorry, one was considered a back injury, but we all know it's a concussion now. And now Josina Anderson is confirming that the Miami Dolphins are pursuing a quarterback. They are concerned with Tua's health issues. And we know Lamar Jackson was rumored to be favorable to the Miami Dolphins because he is from Florida and perhaps he'd like to return home since he is not able to get a deal done with the Baltimore Ravens. And we know the owner Stephen Ross is loaded. This guy has a lot of money if he really wants to make a big splash and take advantage of this loaded Miami Dolphins roster that was able to go to the playoffs and do quite well despite the fact that they did not even have a quarterback. He could invest in Lamar Jackson and maybe it'd make a lot of the fans forget this tragic Tua mess. But if the Miami Dolphins do not find find a quarterback, fans are not going to overlook the Tua situation. We know the high scores and highlights with somebody like Lamar Jackson would make everybody just shut up. But ultimately, fans should know that they handled the Tua situation poorly. They should not have rushed that guy back out there, and now it's going to have consequences for his entire career. Tua was a first-round pick coming out of Alabama. He was a talented quarterback in Alabama and was even able to take somebody like Jalen Hurts' job. And it's just a shame that all of his potential might possibly go to waste because he was likely pressured by the coaching staff to continue to play, and because he was desperate to prove himself, he likely also wanted to rush himself out there, especially given the fact that he was having a great year. Either way, man, let me know what you think is going to happen to Tua in the comments below, and let me know who you think the Miami Dolphins' next quarterback could possibly be week 1 starting in 2023. If you want more NFL content from me, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you do not miss any of our next videos. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.